You're listening to the Be Better Off Show by Kelly+Partners.
Welcome to the Be Better Off Show, where we bring you great Australians doing interesting things that can help you be healthier, wealthier, and wiser. And today we've got Geoff Coombes, who is the founder of the tour, The Cure. And without saying much about him, this is an incredible initiative to raise money for a very important cause that affects huge numbers of Australians. But rather than taking words out of Geoff's mouth, why don't we welcome Geoff and say good morning.
Morning, Brett. Morning, everyone.
Mate, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school or university? And what was your professional training? And how did you come to sort of stumble into doing what you're doing?
Sure. So born in Melbourne, but then my father worked for Qantas. So I kind of lived the expat life for a lot of years. Singapore, England, Malaysia, Germany, Africa, and then ended up back at boarding school at Cranbrook in Sydney to finish some schooling, but kind of 12 different schools before landing at Cranbrook. Loved it. After school, studied civil engineering, wasn't me, did a lot of work in hospitality, and then decided to travel, as you do when you're kind of mid-20s. And a mate who I used to do 3-Unit Modern History with, and I had always talked about cycling through the south of France, and he was heading to the US, and we said, why don't we ride across America? So in 96, we met up in New York. We went to a bike shop. We bought matching bikes and a couple of panniers and a little bit of camping gear, a map and a train ticket up to Vermont. And then we spent 9 weeks cycling from Vermont to Vancouver, which was probably that beginning of this passion and love of seeing a country by bike. And it gave me that experience, I think, to then go, righto, I could, 10 years later after coming back from traveling, wouldn't it be nice to see my own country? And the idea of doing something for a cause had always sat with me, and Tour de Cure was born.
So how far was that initial bike ride?
5,500 kilometers.
So
I remember we'd wake up.
What do you do? I'm trying to work it out. You're doing 100 Ks a day for 9 weeks.
It was 100 miles a day when you had some rest days and the likes. And the best lesson I learned from all of that is to check which way the winds prevail, because riding from east to west was not the correct way to ride. So many years later,
you were riding into the wind?
We were riding into the wind. So, certainly built up some strength, but I'd not cycled for, I'd never really done any cycling. But I remember buying these rugby shorts that had a chamois in them, and there was no way I was going to shave my legs or do any of that stuff that cyclists do. Quickly realized that the reason why they wear the equipment is for comfort and for protection. And yeah, sure enough, by the end of it, I remember lopping into some very hairy legs somewhere in the backcountry of the US. And from then I've been shaving my legs ever since.
There it is. So that's a tremendous story, and of friendship, and then of coming up with a challenge that you're interested in and actually doing it. So often people have ideas and they never come to fruition. What is it that I guess gave you both the impetus to just do it? Because in all the people that we've interviewed, and which is many, many, many people, that impetus to actually do something is so important. How, a lot of people might have had this idea of cycling from somewhere to somewhere, but never did it. How did you get yourselves across the line?
Oh, look, the sense of adventure was just burning within myself and the guy who I rode with, Nick. So that first trip, I think probably a beautiful sense of naivety as to what we were in for, ability to do it with a mate. So felt that you weren't alone. You could always kind of tread the path with someone. Along the way, the knowledge that we built, and even within a week of starting that ride, we met 2 American guys, Mike Doolan and Mike Berg, who were doing almost an identical trip, but were planned within an inch of themselves. So good fortune that we met these guys. We ended up spending the next 7 weeks together, and they taught us everything about servicing bikes and, as I said, every road planned and where we needed support. And the hospitality that we received, being 2 Aussies riding across the US, was incredible. So I think lots of good things that came to us with that sense of adventure. And then years later, I think the ability to bring Tour de Cure to life was very much, I kind of backed myself into a corner. 2 co-founders with me, Samantha and Gary, and we talked about it, and the idea kind of blossomed. And I remember telling so many people that I was going to start this charity and we were going to raise funds for cancer. And all of a sudden, I've told too many people to back out. And I think there's something in that commitment that you make to others that holds you to account, and the ability to then go, you know what, I don't have to know everything, but there are incredibly generous and wise people around you that will believe in you and will invest in you. And all of a sudden, a small idea becomes, 15 years later.
Yeah, it's a great story, and thanks for sharing about these two riders, because so often we just need people in our lives that have already, trodden the path or have an enormous amount more knowledge than we do. And to your point, I've always found that the best of the best are so generous with their knowledge. If you're a student that actually wants to know, and so there you are, you two crazies. Let's cycle hundreds and hundreds or thousands of miles, and we've got no real plan, but we find two guys that do. It's a great lesson. So you tell all your friends you're going to raise money for cancer. What was it about the cancer cause, and was it specific cancer or somebody had been affected in a particular way, or how did you come to that cause?
Good question. It was actually nothing. I remember I got to about 30, so 5 years after getting married, and I wanted to do something. And I remember annually doing the big walks, the shave your head, the grow your mows, those sorts of things. And looking back, they all had a relationship to cancer, but I didn't connect to it. I hadn't lost anyone. As I said, Gary and Sam, who I founded Tour de Cure with, we originally set up being an Australian charity that would help Australian health conditions. That was our first mandate. And we thought we'll tackle cancer, and naively thought that, we'll do 4 years on cancer and see where we get to. But it wasn't.
We get that solved. We off to the next.
And I remember we've got this vision board, and we're going to raise $2 million from 2007 to 2011. And I was absolutely adamant we wouldn't do it. And not adamant, but just like, crazy. That's so ambitious. Holy dooly, that's crazy. And surely that's enough. A couple of years in, and in fact, most of the people who joined us in that first year, we were just there for the good of it. We were mates that had taken up the sport, that believed we can contribute, and they lent their knowledge, their networks, their energy. And all of a sudden, 28 people in year one raised 350,000, and we were away. And we all came from a brand and event background, so building a brand at the heart of what we were doing was always key. And first year, we partnered. We had Lexus as a sponsor.
I was suddenly say, I saw the cars very early on. You had these great branded cars.
I'm sitting in one right now. Yeah, look, Lexus have joined us since the very beginning, and 15 years later, still committed. And in fact, we've just re-signed for another 3 years, which, all of a sudden, and we use the term elephants dancing with elephants. Once you're, working with brands like that, you lift to associate with them. And in turn, that attracts other equal brands. So we're very lucky to work with the likes of Combank, Westpac, Suncorp, Optus, Qantas, many, many, many big brands that I think those first partnerships in the early days put us in good stead to raise to that caliber of eventing.
So over that first 4 years where you wanted to raise 2 million, what did you end up raising?
We got to the fourth year, and Mark Beretta from Sunrise joined us on that fourth year and kind of knocked it out of the ballpark. All of a sudden, we had a national audience, and we actually finished with 3.8 million in the first 4 years. And that kind of set us on to a new, right, what's our next vision? And every 3 years, we would sit back, reassess, create the next 3-year plan. And I remember at the very beginning, we wanted to be we wanted to be the premier cycling charity. And then we wanted to be the most inspirational cycling community in the world. And then we've kind of come back to the heart of what we're always doing, which is engaging communities around curing cancer. And now in the process of it, we're very much changing lives of people. And it's not just those who are on this cancer path with us, but the health benefits that come from being involved with a cause. And then obviously seeing people now more than just walks. We're doing rides, we're doing walks. We've got a digital platform where people can do their Ks their way. So we've grown to now, I think we're just over 66 million that we've raised in 14 years. 9 walks, 9 rides, 9 walks, 3 gala events, close to probably 12, 14,000 people a year taking part in our events. And as committed as ever, despite COVID, to crack on. The researchers are doing brilliant work.
So where's the money go specifically in terms of, Geoff, have you guys focused on university partnerships or specific cancer research, or what's the egg that you're trying to crack?
The egg is cancer cures and having it to be a non-fatal disease. So I think I remember at one stage going, we're going to crack this and, we will cure cancer. More and more, I think I realize now that the scientists and cancer is such a beast that we need to create more targeted therapies. And just as we've created, pathways that stop ovarian cancer and other cancers from being a death sentence, we're able to do more of that with the researchers now pursuing different theories. So we consider ourselves cancer agnostic.
Yeah.
We at the very beginning, we said we want to help research, support, and prevention. We want to deal with those 3 areas that affect people dealing with cancer. And we want to help men, women, and children. And at the very beginning, that was too broad for people to really grasp, because everyone was, I'm focused on prostate cancer and men is my issue. And we always believed that it doesn't discriminate, and therefore nor should we. And I think now, years later, the relationship we have with a number of these big corporate partners who are engaging the depth of their organization, being agnostic, helping fund research, support, and prevention. Our grants process is an independent grants committee that we have an annual grant round each year, which is attracting $30 to $35 million worth of grant requests. And then the panel go through and review each of those requests, 280 odd research applications. And then we work with the Translational Research Institute to again qualify down. Sadly, we're not raising 30, 40 million as yet, but we are able to go, right, if we're getting to that 9 or 10 million, roughly 80, 82% of our funds go towards research, the rest towards those support and prevention projects. Then we're bringing to life 50 to 60 research projects a year. Yeah. And our measure of success is those research projects achieving those scientific breakthroughs. So we're just gone past our 45th scientific breakthrough, which again is that progress towards global collaboration of understanding when the research has been peer reviewed, and then we're raising the bar on the research levels around the world.
So great, because probably my strongly held belief that people underestimate what they can do over a 10-year period and sort of overestimate what they can do over a 10-minute period. But over 14 years or 40 years, if you can keep investing into this research and be long-term partners to the best research that's out there, then the cumulative effect of that, the real compounding effect, can be massive.
It's a long-term game. The research that was done 4 or 5 years ago is now yielding those results. I remember when we started, there was 3 ways to treat cancer: surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. Immunotherapy is now kind of going into its 15th, 18th year. So that new hope around using our own immune system to fight cancer that it's very capable of, but cancer's learned how to trick it. So those targeted therapies, the progress that the clinicians are making, that beds to lab research that a lot of the institutes are now pioneering, the progress is going to be swift. And they're saying, that ours will be the last generation to probably die from cancer. And our kids should be able to kind of live with it, just as we live with various other diseases that over the years have gotten to that point.
It's an amazing area to be involved with, because the medical researchers is one of the areas of science where you can see this exponentiality around, understanding and outcomes. And so to be able to really see over many, many years that the efforts of these people, who, I think we should all admire tremendously for their commitment, just sustained commitment. It's one thing to ride from here to there over X amount of days, but when you see these medical researchers that have put 20, 30, 40 years of consistent effort into, cracking a particular egg, it's very, very admirable.
Over the last couple of years, we do a lot of work with some specific foundations, and getting those researchers out of the lab on the events with us and really getting to know them, their passion, their drive. They're incredibly bright and driven with just a single purpose. I was never going to be a scientist, but my ability to help in this space is to enable big communities to help raise funds.
Yeah, it's incredible. Now, what can we do for our listeners today? Tour de Cure, you can go to the digital platform. How can people get involved, and what's the best way they can contribute?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, obviously dollars are where we're going to be able to contribute more to the research. Big one is also love your community. Go out there and get on top of your health. Health is wealth, as we always say, but get on top of your health screening. Know what you need to know at certain ages in order to know your family history around cancer, and start a relationship with your doctor, and be regular and be consistent. And that skin checks and all those sunburns that we had as kids, the cumulative effect is, as adults and more senior adults, it is compounding. So the best one, I think, is if everyone can take the initiative to go out there and check on your mates, go and get your health checks, and certainly your cancer health screening. We're a growing community with lots of ways for people to get involved, and whether that's volunteering, whether that's taking on our K's to Cure Cancer platform, we're here for the long run. We believe we're going to be around in 50 years' time, hopefully with cancer kind of almost behind us. And in fact, I'm very confident it will be. But get behind us in the way that we're going to enable these researchers and growing number of researchers to keep pursuing and doing what they do. I think the big impact from COVID has been that people haven't gone and gotten their skin checks or their regular health checks. We're going to deal with more advanced cancers over the next year. I mean, obviously, the researchers being unable to have gotten in the labs, we've kind of lost a year of progress. So there's some catch up that needs to happen. We had a year of really tough not being able to run events. So for us, getting the event side of things back, getting the funds raised, engaging with the corporate communities and more corporates who'd like to get involved, knock on the door, reach out to me personally. We're a group that I'm very confident everyone who joins us will be richer for the experience.
Yeah, fantastic. So is there information that we can share with our listeners on, you mentioned their health screening and things that people should do at particular ages and these sorts of topics?
Brett, I wish there was, and I'm sure there is on the Cancer Council and various other platforms. And Cancer Council is probably that great source for that. Bowel cancer and skin cancer and breast cancer, you'd think that for all the advertising and everything we see that it would be pretty common. But sadly, it's not. But the best thing you can do is if you don't already start a relationship with your GP, work with them on things that they would go, right, we need to be across your health at this time of your life. But certainly skin is an annual checkup. Prostate, they say kind of 40, 45. Breast cancer is ongoing. Bowel cancer from 50. But like I said, get that relationship happening with your doctor. Get regular with your checkups, and dealing with cancer as a primary type of cancer, there's so many more options than when it's a secondary and when it's metastasized and spread through the body. And health is wealth. Yeah,
it's great. It's such a great message. So look, I really want to thank Geoff for his time this morning. It's very much our focus to bring people to our audience that can encourage you to think about your health, your wealth, your wisdom, and I think that's a great message. Health is wealth. Without your health, there's not much else that you can do, and I think everyone knows it. But to bring that to people, the forefront of people's minds, and get us once again to think about that is a really valuable message. So they can go to tourdecure.com.au and check out the online community. We'll do more to get the message out, to get people involved. I think it's a great story, Geoff, of backing yourself into the corner, your own corner, and with your own friends, and convincing yourself to do something. And and living a life of ultimately of service and value to other people. And we consistently see that people that are the happiest are those that are doing something with meaning that actually makes a difference to other people. So
I think that's what we've seen the most of over the last, 5 to 8 years working with the corporate sectors, where we leave on Sunday to do a big ride with Westpac. And we're going to take a couple of hundred Westpac staff, some of their business partners on a 3-day ride. But we've spent months training together, and that commitment from them to join a cause, to rally and lift each other up, that humility which comes from the most senior executives realizing that their position in a business is irrelevant when they're on a bike. When they're riding next to the frontline staff and the CEO, Peter King, is there in Lycra, and you kind of going, that's leadership that we're seeing. And I think more and more people, as we get later on in life, kind of putting back into community. I'm the richest person in every sense outside of financially because I found something that I love doing, and I get to do it every day, and I get to see people at their best when they come into our community and when they lead and they shine in their own community. So, I encourage everyone, if you've thought about it and it's, something you wanted to do, find your cause, find what you're passionate about, get involved and invest your time, and guaranteed you won't regret it. Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's a great message. I really want to thank Geoff for joining us this morning. I hope everybody gets something out of that. There's so much here of real value. And, once again, I think we've been able to bring you this morning something that I think can be very positive and very, very life-changing. So, Geoff, I want to say thank you from all of us for making the time this morning.
Brett, quick question for you. When was the last time you had your skin check?
Yeah, I do it every year. I'm lucky. I've got a guy up in, it was a year ago. I've got a guy up in North Sydney, and he gets his thing out and he puts his
good on you.
His light across me. And it's funny because as you're mentioning it, I've always been this paranoid chap around these things. I played a lot of cricket, and so I feel like I copped a lot of sun, and so I go and see old mate with his funny light, and then he chops little things off or does his thing. But I've said to clients for years and years, have that bowel test, go see your doctor, and go and see them regularly whether you feel well or not, even though our culture very much is to not go to the doctor unless you don't feel well. So go and have annual blood tests, get more tests than they want to put on Medicare, offer to pay for them. It's the best use of your money. Go and see the skin guy, because prevention really at the end of the day is better than cure.
Well said, mate. Well, I hope you'll think about getting involved with us one of these days.
Got to get the bike. Got to get the bike off its rack.
Oh, we can help
you
with
about
that.
the 1,000th person that's asked me, Brett, you're going to come riding with us, and I've been a resistor. But mate, I'll come and see you.
Sounds good.
Be good.
Thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Geoff. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for listening to the Be Better Off Show. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts.
Have a great day.